Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at, or re-looking at, the RX 78-2 Master Grade Gundam version 1.5, and here he is. And so I've already done a short over this guy a couple months ago, or about a year ago, can't quite remember, but, yeah, I've done a video on him, but we're not going to really be talking about this version, we're going to be talking about this version. This is not a separate kit. I painted this one. I got one at a flea market, at the flea market that I go to every single year. And I got one for $15, and I decided to paint him. So here he is. We'll just look at both of them. And so yeah. So I love the design of the RX 78-2. Just love the design. It's just timeless. It looks incredible and amazing. Just the balance of the smooth parts, like at the legs, and then the blocky and angle parts up at the torso. Just absolutely love it. So obviously we all know this design, these colors, and we all know what this is. And this foot is is an unmolded, or nearly, those Lego bricks that aren't fully molded, that don't really escape the quality control. That is one of those foots. And this foot came off of this model, this guy. But because I was painting him, I wanted to leave that foot intact. So I put it on this guy. I took his foot off and I gave it to the other model, and I'm very happy to see that. It's so cool to see that and have a kit that has like a partially molded foot, or a partially unmolded foot. So yeah, just the standard white, blue, red, and yellow, and it just looks timeless. And I really love this color scheme. But of course, since I got another one, I decided to paint him, obviously yellow, green, and pink. And little bits of yellow right there. Did just different shady yellow for the skirts. And I left the cooling vent red. I didn't repaint it. And the V right there, I painted blue. The eyes, you might not be able to see, but they are blue as well. The V-fin is blue, and then just the head crest I left red. And then the camera is blue as well. And I am very happy with this. Obviously, you can tell that there's some like blotchiness, like I don't know what happened with the paint. And I did not top coat it, so it does feel like a little bit sticky. Like you can see some of the like wrinkling and stuff in this piece, but especially in that piece, but I still really like it. And unfortunately, that bicep swivel is completely fused. This one isn't. This one can still work, which I'll get to. But yeah, I think this guy came out beautifully. I think the yellow would have looked a touch nicer if it was a little bit darker, kind of more similar to this yellow, but a little bit lighter than the actual plastic yellow, but it still looks really nice. More of the Gundam marker yellow, like more of just a regular yellow, like a number 2 pencil yellow, not this like real yellow, or this more whitish yellow. But yeah, I really like the way it came out. I love it. Looks like a jungle version of the standard RX 78-2. But yeah, I really like this. And I did change some of the parts. This guy cut these models, or this model itself, because of the same guy, comes with a couple different parts. So I'm going to go get those and show off the difference between them. So here are all of these pieces. I'll just move him out of the way. So we have two separate chest pieces. This one came off of my first one, the one that is unpainted, because I lost one of these little vents, and they are able to articulate, but I can't really get my finger in there, but they are able to articulate and open up a little bit. So I lost one, and then I just left the other one off. But that is the chest that is on this one. You can see the individual veins or vents on that guy. So there's this one, and this collar goes on that one, just like so, but since it's just a tab, it really doesn't want to stay. So that is the collar that is on this guy. And then this is the chest that is on the unpainted one, and it has just solid fins. Like, I can't move them, they just have a gap in them. And this chest, this collar, you can see has a cutout. This one does not. So when in my original short, when I said that the collar gets in the way of his neck articulation on the unpainted one, this is why. Is because this is the torso that I have on it, and this thing is in the way. This high collar's in the way. So it gets in the way. And obviously there's some detailed differences between the two. This one's more detailed, this one's not. I like this one a lot more. If you get this kit, I think you can fit these solid ones in this chest. So that's why I would recommend putting these pieces into this chest, so you can get this collar, so you can get the better head articulation. So that's what I would do. And then you have two different shoulder pads, which are on both of the separate kits. And then you have these shoulders, which are a bit more basic, but have these sort of side vent things. But from the front, they are a bit more basic. And then you have these two different ankle guards. The two, I did not have the other variant. They're on the kits. I use both of them. These ones, they just split apart like the shoulders. Like, you separate this half and then you put it on. When these ones, they separate like this, but they have these hinge pieces come off as well. So you have two separate styles of ankles. I think these ones have a little bit more detailing when the standard ones are just plain. And then obviously you have your core block. I have the core fighters in both of these guys because to me the core block, these pegs are a little bit more weak. At least maybe that's just because I've used the core block the most in both these kits, but I'll save the core block a little bit till later. And then you have this rubbery or soft, safe style V-fin, and then you have the hard plastic V-fin. The soft plastic one is on the plain version, and then my painted version has the stiff hard one. So you get two of those. I wish they did this style because this is a separate piece. This jewel or whatever. I wish they did that. They didn't mold the one into the hard plastic one. It would have just been another piece to remold, but I would have liked it a bit more. And then I don't know the difference between this crotch piece and the other one. I just don't know. There's 4 because I have 2 kits of the same. So I have 4 of them. So I don't know what that's for. And then there are these shoulders. These shoulders, obviously they have a hinge joint and then they connect by that peg. But instead of being, and it is by this little tab that holds it together. I'll show you his. You pull his arm off and it's an actual peg. When this is a little like a little tab, and this thing, these shoulders used to be on my unpainted one, the one I had before. And I grew a strong hatred of this model because of this joint, because it was not solid, it was wobbly, it just didn't work. But when I went and built this guy, I built him with those peg shoulders, not these like slot shoulders. I bought him with the peg shoulders, built him with the peg shoulders. So I went back and I built him with these with the peg shoulders. I mean, not shoulders, but elbows. And I love him immensely more because his arms are way more solid, and I did not know anything about that. So yeah. If you still have these shoulders on and you don't have those other shoulders on, I would really recommend replacing them because I love the peg style elbows rather than these like slotted whatever elbows. But these are all of the individual parts that you get to customize and make them different. I am kind of working that these ankle guards are the same. That you do get extra skirts. I don't know why, but you do get extra skirts, or maybe they're different, but I really couldn't tell the difference, so I didn't get them out. But so they have the same skirts, but their torsos, as you can see, are different, and as I said, are different, and their shoulders are different. So you can have two models, which this guy's painted and this guy's not. But if you were to have them both stock, you could be able to display them in either mode, whichever parts on this guy and whichever parts on that guy, or customize them. So, yeah, you have that more ability to customize them. So, before I get into the articulation and then the weapons, I want to show off the hidden gimmicks and the compartments. This guy, since I painted him and I really didn't care for it, I more just sort of painted over it, and I don't think I could even get them open. So we'll look at it from him, and we'll just split him in half just to make it a little bit easier. And here is the core fighter, and I'll leave him in here because this one's waist actually did break. That's why it's a little loose right here. So I'm not going to take him out. I'm going to show up the core fighter with my painted one. But that's how you do it. You just pull off the torso. So you have this compartment that shows off some of the inner frame, and I pulled it off a little too much, but you can open up about that much. And if you wanted to paint that, you could. And then obviously you have that little gray bit right there. And then you have a spot right here. I don't know how far this can open. Not really, because the hinge didn't want to work. But you can show off more of the inner frame. So that's for the leg. And then obviously, if you want to bend this, you can get some of the inner frame and the ankle joints and everything showing there. Then this one, there's only just the wrist. So you can open that up, and you can actually open it up, and that is a separate piece. There's no inner frame. For the arms, it's just two pieces, and then your elbow. So that is a separate piece inlaid in there. So those are your inner frame details that you can go ahead and paint if you want to, or repaint, or take out, or not in the legs, but these pieces you could probably take out if you don't want it to be there, and then just glue that in and just model it to where you don't get that panel line. But that is all for that. So now, before the articulation, we'll move on to our core fighter. And if you know anything about the core fighter, it's just a little plain, and I really like it. You do have the parts from the top fin, but I'll just go ahead and grab it right now, and then that just slides right there. And like I said, I have found more rigidity between the two kits. Obviously not this one, because I said that it was broken. I don't know how it was broken, but it is broken. But I did fix it, but not perfectly. So this guy's waist joint is a bit tighter. But yeah, I really like the Core Fighter. I typically just leave them in there, but I left these two unpainted and I painted the weapons a little bit different. You'll see that later on, but I did that more because I want to keep these guys like a standard issue, like the Zaku's. I wanted them to be different colors, but I wanted them to, even though the Gundam is not a standard thing, it's a one-off guy kind of, at least I think. But I kind of wanted my new one to feel like the Zaku in the sense that they use standard weapons, standard core fighters to interact with one another, but they're still different mobile suits or different Gundams or whatever. But that's why I left this unpainted, not because I'm lazy. I just wanted to kind of keep that more militaristic standard issue style. So there's a core fighter, and before I put him back in, you can put in the core block, and that works just as good, but I have found that happens because the pegs aren't, these holes aren't deep enough or what, I don't really know, but you can put the core block in, but because I found that, at least on my copies, the core fighter works a bit better, I typically leave the core block out and use the core fighter. So, yeah, so there is that, and what you can do with the core fighter and the core block, and all of that. So, before we get to our weapons, we will go over his articulation. So, this guy, as I said, he has that cutout on the collar because this is a different torso. So, he gets a much wider and a bit better expression in the head. It's not perfect. I really wish the helmet was redesigned or the collar was redesigned a bit better so he could get a little bit more articulation out of his head. Before we continue on, I'm going to get rid of that stuff. Alright, so now we can get on with this without having that junk in the background. But his head can swivel, but it is still very limited. His arms can obviously do a full 360. You can get his beam saber holding pose, and then you can get some outward movement, and you can't get any inward movement. Obviously this side, no bicep swivel, but he should have a bicep swivel right at that cut. And then he has a 90-degree elbow, or a little less than 90 degrees. He has a very slight waist swivel due to the sculpting of all the skirt pieces and everything. And obviously no ab crunch because of the core block and the core fighter, or core fighter. So we'll raise up the skirts. And he can kick up that far. He can kick back that far. This skirt back here is solid. It cannot move. It's just a solid piece. So he can move out that far. And that is not due to this. It is due to the ball joint. It is a ball joint, not a hinge joint with like a polycap, like the shoulder. He has a thigh swivel, but because it's a ball joint, it acts easier as the ball joint acting as the thigh swivel than the actual thigh swivel. Or maybe it doesn't even have one. I don't know. But you can fake it with the ball joint. And then he has a double jointed knee that can get really high. And then you have an ankle tilt, which isn't great. And ankle tilt the other way, obviously. And he doesn't have too much forward movement. He does have some back, as you can see, but really his feet and head are the most limited. And I didn't realize this when I made this guy's video, his short, that this guy is old. He's from he's from 2000, and after owning the 1995 Gundam Wing 1/100 scale Gundam Wing high grade, and then the 99 Endless Waltz custom Sandrock high grade, that this guy, it makes complete sense that his head, or not really his head, but his ankles and some of these joints are not perfect on both of them. It makes sense that they are not completely perfect in all of this sense, because it's an old kit. It turned 24 years old this year. So it definitely makes sense that these guys definitely feel a little bit janky, but I still really like them. So now onto the hands is just a hinge joint and then a trigger finger split, and then the thumb is on a ball joint. And obviously he can hold the beam saber, but I am not a fan of these hands. This is really the only thing that he can hold in these hands. And obviously have to get the beam saber, the actual effect part, and he can hold it just fine. And yeah, and I also did not paint the beam sabers. Once again, I wanted him to stay somewhat connected to the regular RX 78-2, so that's why. And of course, like most high grades, and I think real grade, like all high grades, and I think most real grades, you get an Amaru Ray as the pilot if you want to paint him. I did not. I'm already not very good at painting, so I didn't. So now let's get to those accessories. Okay, so for all the weapons, there's only 2 weapons that I'm going to showcase with him. I'm just going to show them all off. I'm not going to put them in their hands or anything. So before we get into the actual weapons, I'm going to show off the hands. You have 2 trigger finger hands for the beam rifle, and then obviously the fully articulated hands that are already on the kits. You have these trigger finger hands. You have some open hands, and these are all of the ones from both the kits. You have these open hands for more of like a relaxed pose. Have the 2 other trigger finger hands, and then you get some fists. So because there's only 2 sets of fist hands and 3 open hands, I used one closed hand that came with him with my painted one, and then one open hand that came with my painted one to make this a minigun. I used this to I cut up one of the hands so this can adapt onto his hand like the Gundam heavy arms, and we'll look at that a little bit later. And I did not have the chain for this mace, which is a weapon, from my painted one, so I cut up another one of the hands and I made this. It looks horrible. I don't know why the paint just did not want to stick. I tried painting it in blue and red and it still did this. And obviously the silver did it as well. So I don't know why that's happening, but as you can see, like the bazookas, I kept the bazookas very similar. This is the plastic one, the unpainted one, then this is my painted one. I kept it gray because, like I said, I wanted it to still stay somewhat like standard issue. So obviously it's a different gray, but it's not like a blue or something or a red. So that's what I did with that, and I really like the bazookas. I just wish that these could articulate and pivot just to make like this part fit around the shoulder a bit more. This accessory, this lance thing, I've hated this. I cut up the one from my the painted one, but I am not a fan of this accessory. I think it's dumb. There are probably other kits, even the other master grade kits that probably do this way better, but this kit does not do it well. Even the one that I painted before I cut it up, it did not work. I'm just not a fan of it. And then that previously mentioned chain and ball, and I think that's cool, but it just, like Megatron's chain in Transformers, is that either you're going to have a bunch of hinge joints, like a stand, like a display stand, or you're going to have a chain that can't be posed. So I'm just not a big fan of even including this kind of stuff, because you're going to need a stand anyways, or it's going to not look like you want it to. And then obviously the beam rifle, and I don't know what this little tab is for. It's probably for like hooking it somewhere, but really like that. I did not do that on this one. I just missed the piece, and I did not get instruction sheet or instruction booklet with the one that I painted. So I had to do all this by memory, and it was pretty easy, especially after I built my 95 Wing Gundam. It was really easy, and I painted the scope red instead of yellow, just to differentiate it just a tiny bit. So, and then I didn't even mess with the shields. I wanted to keep them just the same. And to the shields, you do have all of these pegs, and then you get this hole or port in his back, but it doesn't. Wait, it does? I guess not. I was about to complain about that because on this one, on this guy, he doesn't. I think I might have just left the polycap out, or I've done something wrong. I had to have left the polycap out. So I think I might take that apart and put that polycap or whatever in there, because I was about to go on a super long rant about not being able to do this with the shield. Like, okay. So I'll definitely figure that out later. But once again, there's no really good hand to hold the shield. The articulated hand and not the gun holding hand. They don't really hold the shields very well. That is one thing I wish they did better, is the articulated hands. Just because I don't know. So that's really it. The only weapons I'm going to show off, because everyone knows that for the guns, you'll probably use the gun holding hands and the lance, and this you'll use the articulated hands. So gonna move all this stuff off to the side, and now we're going to be left with these ones. So we'll bring in him, and we'll take the beam sabers off his back, so we can put the beam rifle, fold that out away, and put that on his shoulder, and then we can put this on his shoulder, just like War Machine from Iron Man. So yeah, you can do that. I really love this. I already was planning on doing this with the beam rifle, and then I just decided I love the Gundam Heavy Arms. I love this design, so let's just meld the two together with this minigun. So I did that, and I absolutely love this look. Love the look of it. It looks amazing. So we'll just take this off and take this off, and we'll show off the hand gimmick. Pull this hand off, and now we'll put this onto his hand. And obviously it looks a little bit goofy because there's no panel lining or scribing on the minigun, so it looks a little out of place on the kit just because it doesn't match the aesthetic of anything. But I still like it for just doing it and trying it. It looks good, it looks nice, so I really like it. So now we'll just take that off, and you can see where the hand was. And now the mace, it doesn't look the greatest, but it still looks kind of cool, especially for not having the chain for it. It still looks pretty cool. Not great. I wish it came out a whole lot better, but it still looks plenty okay and good. So yeah, that's all the accessories that it comes with. These guys come with a bunch of accessories, and I absolutely I like it because, excluding the mace and the stabber thing, whatever, javelin or whatever, I think it's a perfect amount of accessories. I love the bazooka, I love the beam rifle, obviously love the shield, and the beam sabers and the beam saber effects parts. But especially after learning about the collar and the different chest plate and the new elbows that I knew, especially learning about those things, I have gotten a much better relationship with this kit. Before, with the wobbly waist of just having to have the core fighter in it or the core block in it, and then those elbows, the elbows really killed it for me. But when I built this guy and I found out that those aren't the only elbows, I was ecstatic. I loved this kit even more than this kit, so I went and built this one, and I love both of them equally. Um, I love this paint scheme. Love what I did on it. Really, really like it. Love this kit. Now, is it worth the money? Like $30 to $50? I would say I don't know, because I haven't experienced any of the other master grades. I bought this guy for 15. I would say for 15 easily. Fit 30, I would say he's still a really good kit. But if you're gonna spend 30 on him, 30 or more, I should say, 30, I would be completely fine with it. But if it's more than 30, I would recommend putting a little bit of work into him. Like this guy, his elbow broke. Like the shoulder, I mean, broke. Like where the polycap goes, it just split down the side. So there are some aspects where you'd probably want to do some work. Like if you want this chest with all this detail and you have to use this collar, either do some modeling and use this collar, or do some modeling around it to on the collar or the head to get more articulation out of it, because he can basically do nothing with his head. He can barely turn his head. It's not great, but he still can. You can still get around it. But those are some things I would just recommend if you're going to buy him for a higher price. But overall, I really, really like this model. I love it. I love the looks of it. I like how it's a bit more blocky, a bit more squat, a bit more like compressed. The limbs are a bit wider, at least to my eyes, comparing it to like the 3.0 version. I don't like the like thin style. Like just looking at my high grade and my entry grade, the proportions are much thinner on the limbs. The limbs are much thinner. I like this a bit more. I like how the torso is a bit more squat, a bit wider, and same with the legs and the arms. It just makes them look a touch more like machines when it comes to being a bit bulkier, like not like the Pacific Rim Jaegers per se, but just the limbs look wider, so it looks a bit more realistic to me. Because I love machines, I love mechanics, like I love how just thinking about how these things would work in real life, and them being a bit more machine proportioned, like having larger limbs and more squat bodies, just makes it look a little bit more realistic to my eyes, and I like the proportions a bit better. But that might upset someone, but they get the 2.0 or the 3.0. But overall, I really like these guys. They are old, so definitely the plastic might be a little bit different. But I still really recommend them if you want more of a build style thing, and if you don't care about painting it, because I guarantee you at flea markets and things, because this is an old kit, you could probably find it for not too much money. Like the guy, the only thing that the person started on was one arm, was the arms and the fists, and that was it. So typically, if you can, I would say, at least with my experience, like I bought my my Sandrock Gundam and my Gundam Wing for like $40, like $20 a piece. Is that if you're gonna find these old kits and you don't really care about painting them or anything, I recommend looking at flea markets and swap meets and stuff, because that's where I found him and found the other two, basically sealed on all three of them. So yeah, that's really all to say. So until next time, see ya.